Let's start today's story. I'm really nervous, like very, very dreadfully nervous. But why do you think I'm mad? The truth is, my senses have sharpened, not dulled. My hearing, especially, is super acute. I can hear everything, things in heaven, things on earth, and even some things in hell. So, how could I possibly be mad? Just listen to me, and you'll see how clearly and calmly I can share my whole story. Honestly, I can't even tell you how that idea first popped into my head. It just haunted me day and night. There was no object, no passion behind it. I loved the old man. He never wronged me or insulted me. I had no desire for his gold. I think it was his eye. Yes, that's it. One of his eyes looked like a vulture's pale blue with a film over it. Whenever it looked at me, my blood ran cold. Gradually, I decided I had to take the old man's life to rid myself of that eye forever. Now, here's the thing. You think I'm mad, but madmen don't know anything. You should have seen how wisely I went about my plan, how cautious and careful I was. I was kinder to the old man during the week before I killed him than I had ever been. Every night, right around midnight, I would gently turn the latch of his door and open it, oh, so quietly. Then, just enough to fit my head through, I'd sneak in a dark lantern, completely closed so no light could escape. You would have laughed at how cleverly I did it. I moved so slowly, very slowly, so as not to wake him. It took me a whole hour to get my head all the way in, so I could see him lying on his bed. Ha! Would a madman be this wise? Once my head was in the room, I carefully opened the lantern, so cautiously. The hinges creaked, but I opened it just enough for a single thin ray of light to fall on that vulture eye. I did this for 7 long nights every night at midnight, but the eye was always closed. It wasn't the old man who bothered me. It was his evil eye. Every morning, when dawn broke, I would walk boldly into his room, calling him by name in a friendly tone, asking how he had slept. So you see, he would have to be quite the old man to suspect that every night at 12 I was peeking in on him while he slept. On the 8th night, I was extra careful opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves faster than I did. Never before had I felt so powerful, so clever. I could hardly contain my triumph. There I was, opening the door little by little, and he had no idea about my secret plans. I couldn't help but chuckle at the thought. Maybe he heard me because he suddenly moved in bed, startled. You might think I would have pulled back, but no. His room was pitch black, thick darkness, with the shutters tightly closed to keep out robbers, so I knew he couldn't see the door opening. I kept pushing it open, steadily. I had my head inside and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped on the tin fastening. The old man shot up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I stayed completely still and said nothing. For a whole hour I didn't move a muscle, and during that time I didn't hear him lie back down. He was sitting up in bed, listening, just like I had done, night after night, listening to the death watches in the wall. Then I heard a slight groan, and I recognized it as the sound of pure terror. It wasn't a groan of pain or grief. Oh no. It was that low, stifled sound that comes from deep within when someone is overwhelmed with awe. I knew that sound well. Many nights, just at midnight, when the world was asleep, I felt that same sound rising from my own chest, echoing the fears that tormented me. I knew what the old man was feeling, and I pitied him even while I chuckled inside. I knew he had been lying awake ever since he heard the first noise when he turned in bed. His fears had been building up, and he tried to convince himself there was nothing to worry about. He probably thought, it's just the wind in the chimney, or maybe a mouse crossing the floor, or it's just a cricket chirping. Yes, he was trying to comfort himself with those thoughts, but it was all in vain, because death approaching him had cast his black shadow before him, enveloping the victim. It was that unseen shadow that made him feel, without seeing or hearing, that my head was right there in the room. After waiting a long time very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I decided to open a tiny crack in the lantern. I opened it, you can't imagine how stealthily, until finally a single dim ray, like a spider's thread, shot out and landed right on that vulture eye. It was opened wide open, and I felt a surge of fury as I stared at it. I saw it clearly dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled me to the bone. But I couldn't see anything else of the old man's face or body, because I had directed the light right at that cursed spot. And now, didn't I tell you that what you think is madness is really just an over-sharpened sense? Well, here's the thing. I suddenly heard a low, dull, quick sound, kind of like a watch ticking when it's wrapped in cotton. I knew that sound well. It was the old man's heart beating. Each thump fueled my anger, just like a drum fires up a soldier for battle. But still, I held back and stayed completely still. I barely breathed. I kept the lantern steady, focusing the light on that eye. Meanwhile, the awful rhythm of the heart grew louder and faster. The old man must have been terrified. It kept getting louder, I swear. Do you hear me? I've told you I'm nervous, believe me. I am. And now, at this dead hour of the night, with the eerie silence of that old house, that strange noise sent me into a panic. But I held on for a few more minutes. The heartbeat grew louder, and I thought it might burst. Then a new worry hit me. The neighbors might hear it. The old man's time had come. With a loud yell, I flung open the lantern and jumped into the room. He screamed once, just once. In an instant, I pulled him down to the floor and shoved the heavy bed over him. I smiled, feeling pleased that the deed was done. But for several minutes that heart kept beating softly. Still, that didn't bother me. No one would hear it through the wall. Finally it stopped. The old man was dead. I moved the bed and checked the body. Yes, he was stone cold dead. I placed my hand on his heart and kept it there for a long time. There was no pulse. He was stone dead. That eye wouldn't trouble me anymore. If you still think I'm mad, just wait until I tell you about the clever tricks I used to hide the body. The night dragged on, and I worked quickly but quietly. First, I dismembered the corpse, cutting off the head, arms, and legs. Then I pulled up 3 floorboards from the room and tucked everything in between the joists. I replaced the boards so skillfully that no one, no human eye, not even his, could spot anything amiss. There was nothing to clean up, no stains, no blood spots. I was too careful for that. A tub had caught it all, By the time I finished my work, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the clock chimed the hour, there was a knock at the front door. I went down to open it, feeling light-hearted. What did I have to fear now? 3 men entered, introducing themselves as police officers. They said a neighbor had heard a scream during the night, raising suspicions of foul play. They were there to search the premises. I smiled. What did I have to fear? I welcomed the gentleman. I explained that the scream was just my own in a dream, and that the old man was away in the country. I showed my visitors around the house, urging them to search thoroughly. Eventually, I led them to his room. I pointed out his treasures, all safe and undisturbed. In my confidence, I even brought chairs into the room, inviting them to sit and rest from their efforts while I, in my wild triumph, sat right on the very spot where the victim's body lay hidden. The officers seemed satisfied. My demeanor had convinced them. I felt completely at ease. They sat, and while I answered their questions cheerfully, they chatted about ordinary things. But soon I started to feel pale and wished they would leave. My head throbbed, and I thought I heard a ringing in my ears, but they kept sitting and chatting. The ringing grew clearer. It just kept getting louder. I tried to talk more casually to shake off the feeling, but it only got stronger until I realized the noise wasn't just in my head. I must have turned very pale, but I kept talking fluently, raising my voice. Yet the sound just kept increasing. What could I do? It was that low, dull, quick sound, like a watch ticking when it's wrapped in cotton. I gasped for breath, but the officers didn't hear it. I spoke faster, more passionately, but the noise kept getting louder. Why wouldn't they leave? I paced back and forth, feeling frantic under their gaze, but the noise just kept growing. Oh God, what could I do? I felt like I was going mad. I raved and cursed. I swung the chair I'd been sitting on and scraped it against the floor, but the noise rose above everything and kept getting louder. It grew louder, louder, louder. And still, the men sat there, chatting and smiling. Could they really not hear it? Almighty God! No, they heard it. They suspected it. They knew. They were mocking my horror. I thought this, and I still think it. But anything was better than this torment. Anything was more bearable than their mockery. I couldn't stand those hypocritical smiles any longer. I felt like I had to scream or die. And now again, listen, louder. Villains. I shrieked, stop pretending. I admit it, tear up the floorboards. Here, it's the beating of his hideous heart. Subscribe and hit that bell for more awesome stories.